and that whilst your purpose
that you've signed up to
changes, your
and we share together
changes from
is
time
to
time.
be your best in all you do.
And greatness can only be measured by the difference between before you showed up and after you showed up. If I look at the number of people whose lives have been transformed by your voice, that's how we measure your greatness.
Basically, what we're going to be talking about is having that power look and having the right makeup for the perfect presentation. So we believe that makeup is not just a skill or a tool to make you feel good. It is something that you actually need, and then it actually helps to boost your confidence. Most of the time, people always say that sight, that's the speed of sight, what you see travels faster than the speed of sound. So people see you first before they hear you. The question is, what can they see? So today I decided to come with my face bare, just so you see what it looks like and you see how much makeup can actually transform you from one point to the other. Now, it's important that as people who are in the public light, we look a certain kind of way, because people will judge us, first of all, by how we look before they even get to listen to what we have to say. How many of us have ever attended any programs? Show of hands. How many of us have ever attended any programs just because we like the way the men are leaving? It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. How many of us have ever attended any program simply because we like the way the speaker looked? Or how many of us have bought a book because we like the way the cover looked?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So that goes to the visual world. People will judge us by how we look, first of all, before they even get to listen to how intelligent or what it is we have to give them. So men don't leave. Yes. So we're going to just be showing us simple tips and tricks on how to transform ourselves from point A to point B in a very quick while. So first, I will be starting with the brows. I always tell people that when we're able to shape the brows, everything just kind of sort of looks different and everything just looks better. So I am having with me my eyebrow pencil and my best friend, which is this spoolie or the mascara wand. I use this, first of all, to literally brush my brows in like upward direction on both sides, right? And then I fill using my brow pencil. I kind of fill in from the bottom, light strokes, no pressure, light strokes. And then think about it like a crescent. When you get to the sharp part or your highbrow point, you start a descent. So I always stay semicircle. Yeah, semicircle. And then you do the same thing for the top. You feel, when you get to the brow point, you start your descent as well. I always like to tell myself it's a semicircle, a rise and a fall. So in a sense, you have a triangular feel at the outer corner. Yeah. And then with your spoolie, again, we brush it in until it literally fades in and you cannot tell where the brow starts and where the pencil ends. If you notice after you've brushed it in that you still have like sparse areas, you literally use your pencils to create like hairline strokes to just fill it in. Remember, you're not painting in, you're filling in. So there's a difference when you're trying to shade and paint in something versus when you're trying to fill in. So what we're doing is filling in. And then we brush in. I'm going to do the other side as well, same thing. Already transforming. Yeah, the second side is we fill the brows from the bottom, rise again and fall, and then fill in. Then again with the spoolie, we brush, brush, brush until you can't see any visible line of demarcation. And then we sparsely fill in the Fill in the sparse areas. Yeah. And then you have your brows like framed. So once your brows are framed, your job is half done. Next, you need is your angled brush. This is also your second best friend. What this helps you do is define, oh, you love my hair, thank you so much, thank you. What you also need is your angled brush. This helps you define your brows and give it like that better, perfect shape. Now, the trick with the angled brush and this is that it also helps you on the days when you can't feel your brows yourself, or you need like a professional to help you trim your brows. When you understand how to highlight and define your brows, you can get away with literally anything because you almost look like your makeup is already half done, right? So using a lighter shade of brow highlighter or concealer. You can use your concealer if you already have one, or you get a brow definer or brow highlighter. The brush is angled. You flip it to the front, let the longest part be inside, and you hold it pretty much like a pen. Everything, when you're holding your brushes, you work like you're using a pen. So that gives you better control every single time. Yeah, and then you literally trace and feel yeah. And then when you have the first line, you blend it in until you can't see any visible line of demarcation. Now, I always tell people to think about makeup like you're thinking about cooking, right? We should see the effect, but we shouldn't see what you're doing. So I should be able to say, oh, you highlighted, but I shouldn't see your highlight. So makeup is beautiful and makeup is so I blend that in until the skin literally absorbs at the bottom. So what you have is it's defined, but you don't see that white line we saw initially. I'm going to do the same thing to the other brow using a highlighter and my brush. On the days when your brows are like undone, you can always use your concealer or your brow highlighter to literally hide away or create an illusion that your brows are like defined, because the shape remains the same whether or not your brows are full, right? So you create the same illusion every single time, and then you blend in. I missed the spot and then I fix that. And that's it, that's done. Then we're now going to highlight or define the top. First of all, before I do that, I would wipe away the residue of the light one away from the brush, because you don't use a light foundation for the top of your brows. If you do that, you create something called the halo effect. It looks like your brows are like bracketed with white lines, and you never want that. So I will wipe that off completely, and then I will take my exact shade of foundation, right? And then I will highlight the top or define the top. And already you see that my face is looking lifted and my eyes are looking open already, just by that little thing. So you create that illusion that my brows are like done, just the brows. So imagine if you can do your brows alone. Imagine that you're already like halfway there, because the brows literally like it opens up your face. And that's it. So next thing we'll do, same thing, is we blend until there's no visible line of demarcation. So these are like very quick hacks to get your makeup done. I'm getting you camera ready every single time. And then you brush. And then fade in so that you don't have like a square at the beginning. Yeah. And then we have the brows done. The next thing would be the skin. If you have oily skin, I always recommend that everyone uses a primer, regardless of or not of if you have an oily skin or not. I always recommend that everyone uses a face primer, because a face primer does three things for you. The first thing it does is that, one, it makes your makeup glide on easily on your skin. So I love defining brows. Yes, it just makes a whole world of difference. Trust me. Every single time the brows are just defined, it just takes it from ground zero to 100. So I always recommend a face primer, regardless of what your skin type is. The question would be, what primer would you use based on your skin type? If you have oily skin, you use a primer that mattifies your skin, which is an oil control primer. If you have dry skin, what you would be looking for would be a moisturizing primer. I have oily skin, or well, I think I have oily skin. No, I know I have oily skin. It's not as bad as most, and I get to shine on my forehead, my T-zone, which is around my nose, and then my chin, right? So I would use an oil controlling primer. So what this would do is I will mattify my skin completely, and then it makes sure my skin produces less oil for a longer period of time. And I'm only going to be putting this primer on the areas where I tend to shine the most, not all over, because you don't really need primer under your eyes. Your eyes, the skin under your eyes are already thin, and they don't need primers, because it's going to dry it out completely. And then after a while, when you apply your foundation, it creates a wrinkly effect. Sometimes I shine here, so I'm going to be putting it, avoiding my under eye area. So the primer makes your skin produce less oil for a longer period of time. It makes it easier for your makeup and every other skin product you put on glide on easily and effortlessly. And then it closes up your sebaceous gland. That way your skin does not produce most oil. So that's my skin. So now it's looking dry and matte. So the next step would be to apply my foundation all over. Now, people like to use the brush, the foundation brush, which is a good thing. But using the beauty blender, I've realized works better for me. One, it saves me time. Two, it gives me a flawless appearance in a shorter period of time. So this is me and my beauty blender, and all I need to do is dab. So what this does is that my foundation just stays on. I press it into my skin. It stays on, and then it conceals my spots very quickly. I'm sure you'll be saying, which spots do you have? Trust me, I have more spots than you can see. I've also learned to set my zoom and apply skin filters so that it looks like I'm made up most of the time. That's another trick you can learn for public speaking and Zoom presentations. Touch up your appearance. When you go to your settings, look for touch up appearance, and then it gives you an illusion like your skin is like done. Yes. You're welcome, Tosin. Because sometimes you're looking at something like, only for this Zoom meeting, they've done their makeup. Not all the time. Sometimes when they just do the brows and you touch up the appearance, it creates an illusion that the person is like completely made up. You're welcome, Rosie. I'm putting the foundation over my eyes as well, like over my eyelid, because sometimes you don't have the time. How I read and then talk at the same time. Oh, wow. Well, thank you. Thank you. Because I can see it in front of me, but I guess I've been doing it for quite a while as well. Like they say, practice makes perfect. No one was born like this. We learned to do everything and we acquired skills as we went along. And COVID taught us new skills that we didn't even know we had. So you blend in. So it's like easy. And then blended. The next thing we will do is highlight. I always feel like highlighting just lifts up the eyes. Sometimes you look a little tired. Highlighting just gives you that pickup. So I'm going to be using a Pro Concealer. Where you would highlight would be your forehead area, which is your T-zone, which is your forehead, your nose bone, your chin, and then under your eyes. Basically, did I use foundation under my eyes? Yes, I did. Listen, I did. Basically, when you go under the sun, wherever light would naturally hit is where you want to highlight, right? And then you blend in again using your beauty blender. And then blend it in. So this beauty blender is very multi-purpose. You can use it for your foundation. You can use it for your concealer. Sometimes I use it for even my powder. Is this the same concealer you use for your eyebrows? Yes, because you are using a concealer to highlight. You are not really concealing anything in the traditional sense. Because when people hear concealers, they imagine that you're trying to hide something. But right now, concealers, especially pro concealers, are used as highlighting and defining. So when you want to get the concealer, most times you get the artist ask you, what do you want to use it for? If you want to use it for highlighting, they will give you a shade lighter. If you want to actually use it to conceal, they would give you your exact shade or something a shade darker or half a shade darker. And then now I would set this with powder, my setting powder. Now, a setting powder is usually lighter, but it's also translucent. So in a sense, it doesn't have so much color residue. It just makes it highlighted. So that's it. Some people run away from highlighters because they feel like it makes them look brighter. Remember, you're still supposed to put your powder over it because even though the highlighting powder is powdery, it is not your true powder. You still need to use your true shade of powder over it. And then there. Now we can almost see like you have like white lines all over the place and you're thinking, why is the makeup looking like that? Now, this is the time where you set it using your powder, right? So I'm picking a powder. Let me use my beauty blender. And I am going to set it. So my powder, because it's my true shade, is warm enough. So it just warms up everything. So you're not seeing that white line very stuck. It kind of blends it in. Okay, so I've set with powder. Then I'm going to be using my contouring powder. Now, people like us, particularly fat people, let's call it what it is, right? We like to create an illusion that we are slimmer. And makeup just gives you that opportunity. So using dark powder, I'm going to create an illusion that my face is slimmer. So from the top of my ears to my cheekbone, this way, I would use a darker powder. So it creates an illusion that this side is already slimmer than the other side of my face. And I'm going to do the same thing here as well. And remember to blend. Remember we said there must be no visible line of demarcation any single time. Then around my temple as well. So what this does, the one on the temple locks in that part between your hair color. You know, sometimes your hair and the foundation is almost like they never really blend. You can always see like a ring on your face. The darker powder around your temple sort of helps you seal that in so that you just have one even tone. And then the chin as well, especially if you have double chin. And then I'm going to use it to frame my jawline and here. Then back to my beauty blender. Like I said, the beauty blender is your best friend. Every part where the dark color and the light color meets, I use the beauty blender to sort of touch it up so that there's no visible line of demarcation between the highlighted side and the darker side. Then I know most of us are here for the nose, getting slimmer nose without going under the knife, right? So using your dark powder as well, you literally trim out your nose. Remember that contouring or the low light takes away things that you don't want to see. So there's that. Framing the nose and the other side. And then you frame it from the bottom. So the thinner the line, the slimmer your nose would appear. But always remember, like I said, there must be no visible line of demarcation. So I'm blending the both lines in. So what you see is the effect, not the line, which is very important. Makeup is about the effects it creates, not the line it leaves. Now, sometimes on very busy days, so pretty much my skin work is done, right? On very busy days, you almost don't have time to want to be trying out eyeshadows. I want to test to see if this works. I want to try to see if that works. I'm going to show you a quick way to cheat, right? I blend this over my eyelids. So this is a concealer, the same highlighted concealer. I put it over my eyelid. Now, this is a trick I use every time I have to do like a maybe 20 minutes makeover, even for clients and for people who say they want like that very natural look. So notice that I'm not dragging anything, which is a mistake where, so makeup is a good portion of it is 70% is probably products, but 30% of your makeup is technique. Thank you. So a good part of it is technique. You don't drag, you press and place. So notice that I am literally just pasting it on as opposed to dragging it. And then you apply this in a dome. So it creates a dome-shaped effect on the left and on the right. And here is the real cheat. I use powder. Don't tell anybody. I use my powder. So I literally take like a brush that's full and fluffy and my powder. I'm going to show you in a second. Thank you. Okay, 1 second. And then with the powder, on it, I literally just dab it on my lid. So you see that that gives me an illusion of having eyeshadow. Now, if I was to use an eyeshadow brush, the eyeshadow brush would look like, thank you, Naomi. If I was to use an eyeshadow brush, it would take a lot more and it wouldn't be as dense and the color would not be as intense. So I realized that using a brush that's this big and this fluffy literally helps me pack on a lot more powder, and it creates an illusion that is an eyeshadow. Look at it now. It's looking a bit orangey. So it almost looks like I have eyeshadow on, but it's the same powder I used all over my face. Yeah. Because it's powder, it also means that I can always brush it off. So I'm not afraid of it staining anything and then having to redo anything, right? And then back to my contoured powder or my contouring powder. I use it to apply, I frame it so it creates an illusion that my eye has more depth. Yeah. And then it now looks like I have eyeshadow on, but it was just powder. The next thing I will do would be to define my eyes. This is the part where I don't sleep. So I have two favorite makeup items. The first one is my liner, and the second one is my bronzer. If you know me, you'd always see that my cheeks are always glowing. And that's because I like my bronzer. So this is my liquid liner. I prefer the ones that are like pens because it's easier for me to like draw on and control. So what I do is, people always say, how do you do it? And then it doesn't smudge. What I do is I close both eyes, putting one finger in my powder so that I don't leave fingerprints because I've already done my skin work. And then I use a finger, close one eye and then pull it, open the other eye, and I write on using the side of the brush, not the tip. Everyone needs a Rhema. Oh my goodness. Thank you. And that's it. That's the first one. So you see that these eyes just look dramatically different from the other one. And then the second one. Yeah. And then we have the top done. Now we switch to the bottom. Then the bottom, using a black pencil you trust. I'm using the retractable 01 pencil from Tara. It is waterproof, yes it is. And I like to smudge. So into smudge, you can put it right in your waterline. So, and that's it. So my eyes are now looking darker and intense, and it looks like I have eyeshadow on. But everything else we did was we played some tricks, and then they actually always work. And now to the lips. I love my nude lips, true and true. I love nudes every day. What I would always do is outline, following the Cupid's bow. So there's a V in the lip. Make sure you follow that dip. So create that V first before you fill over. And then smack. Notice that I put more color at the top. What pencil are you using for the lip? I'm using a brown lip pencil. And then you smack. So I have more pencil at the top than I have at the, more pencil line at the top than I have at the bottom. And that's intentional. So people tend to make a mistake when they're lining their lips. They make sure it balances out. Your lips are not shaped the same at the top and the bottom. That's one. Two, when you do that, you draw more attention to the top. And when you take a photo, your lips look funny and fuller. So always try to put your color, except you're going for like a solid color, like a red or a blue or a purple, and you're going for like a dark solid color. That's when you balance the top and the bottom. Other than that, if you're creating like an ombre, or if you're creating an ombre or you're doing a nude, you put the darker color more on the top and very little at the center. Then the center, you put your color only. The color is on the center part of the lip at the bottom, not all over. Then you smack. Yes. You use a brown lip pencil or a red or a wine, depending on the lipstick color. Absolutely. So it balances it out. Now you can put some more and then build from the center and smack. That way it takes a little bit of color to the top without looking too much. And then wipe off the excess of the lip stain and then blend. You can always use your concealer as well for the center of your lips. Must you use a lip brush to apply the lipstick? I always recommend that you do. One, you have more control and precision. Two, your lipsticks would last longer. Because what people don't realize is that the more you use the one that comes with your lipstick and your lip gloss, you're putting in spittle into your product. Thank you, Tosin. I need a Tosin in my life because you're so good for my ego. Thank you, and my self-confidence. So the more you put the product directly on your lip, the more it gets bad quickly. Then after a while, notice that your lip glosses start to smell funny. They actually smell like really funny when you use them directly. So you can guarantee that it's more hygienic when you take them out and you use the lip applicator. And then smack. and highlight it in the center. And now to my favorite part of makeup, the bronzer. I'm using the light bronzer from Tara. I really am in love with this bronzer because I realized that it works for literally everybody in a subtle way. And then there. And not a lot. And now my cheeks are glowing. And then with my Cupid's bow. Thank you, Dr. Chi. Thank you so much. I noticed we didn't apply, which is the mascara. So I'm just going to do that now so that my lashes look longer and more dramatic. And the other one. So there are two things I do with mascaras. I brush up, then I try to twist my lashes through the mascara brush and sweep out. So it's a brush and a sweep motion that creates the illusion that your lashes are longer and fuller. The brushing helps you make it look longer. The twisting motion helps you, the sweep motion helps you create an illusion that it is fuller. And then I'm going to do the same for the bottom as well. So it looks like I have like more bottom lashes on. And that's it.
Wow. Come on, let's show her some love in the chat section. Let's tell her how hot she looks. My God. Woohoo!
Thank you.
Fire.
What a different makeup makes. Yes. Thank you.
Wow, you look amazing. You look